Conservatives do a U-turn, government changes its mind, and the Tories backtrack. These are the interesting times. It's been a bit of a bad week for the government is a phrase so commonplace that it won't be long before you see it on their coat of arms. They've had a number of U-turns imposed on them in the last week. It started with Premiership footballer and finding a reason to be proud to be English, Marcus Rashford, who started a campaign to get the government to change their mind on free school meals. He sent a powerful open letter which highlighted how such a scheme had helped him whilst growing up in one of the poorer parts of Manchester. His intervention and the pressure that this generated forced the government to change their plan and ensured nearly 1.5 million of the UK's children from some of the most deprived areas are at the very least not going hungry through the summer. No mean feat could well be Marcus Rashford's new nickname. And to be fair, well done to the government as well. Knowing how much they hate giving to the working classes, I'm sure we can all appreciate their sacrifice. U-turn number 2. A track and trace app was due to be rolled out at the start of June to help manage the coronavirus outbreak. So what happened?
We will have a test track and trace operation.
Spoiler alert, no we won't.
That will be world-beating.
No it won't.
And yes, it will be in place.
No.
It will be in place by June the 1st.
Absolutely not.
There will be 25,000 trackers.
Not going to happen.
They will be able to cope with 10,000 new cases a day.
And no. The government were given the option of having one put in place by Google and Apple due to their knowledge and expertise of creating and installing thousands of apps. And this one will be able to be used by approximately 99% of all mobile phone users. But they decided instead to do a bit of DIY, or in this case, DOMINIC. Yes, Dominic Cummings had a mate who was handed the contract ahead of Apple and Google, and they spent £120 million on something that never really got off the ground, and ended up looking like a bit of a dip. And U-turn number 3, it's a hat trick, and no, we're not even counting the schools opening and closing so often all the classrooms have revolving doors. No, this one you might have missed in the general mayhem. As people are aware, non-essential shops were allowed to open last week. Good news for so many that have struggled over the last few months. None more so than the arcade industry. Having spent millions of pounds on things like PPE and extra cleaning staff, they were then advised by email 4 days before they were due to open that they then couldn't. Now I appreciate that this isn't the biggest problem at the moment, but a couple of things if I may. One, if you live in a seaside town like Great Yarmouth or Portsmouth, or anywhere like that really, these sorts of places tend to be the bread and butter of your economy. But besides that, really giving people 4 days notice of a change of policy isn't a good sign. I have to give more notice than that in order to stop a direct debit coming out. A spokesman said our love of gambling and archaic approach to money is one of the reasons we love our industry. I beg your pardon. A Conservative spokesman said our love of gambling and archaic approach to money is one of the reasons we love our industry. So we have some good news on Brexit. Yay! It's a possible deal with Australia, and our PM has looked at starting a free trade deal with our Antipodean friends. So both he and the Australian PM have been talking about what this may mean for both countries. The Australian PM, Scott Morrison, spoke about there being the possibility of more jobs, growth and prosperity in both of the countries. But Boris took a different approach.
And you send us, with reduced tariffs, these wonderful Arnott's Tim Tams. How long can the British people be deprived of the opportunity to have Arnott's Tim Tams at a reasonable price?
All right, it's a good example.
Yes, that is 2 reporters on the other side of the planet laughing at our Prime Minister, who's now the drunk uncle at the wedding reception of world leaders. Well, tariff-free boomerangs aside, this deal isn't really that big a deal. Don't take my word for it. Former Prime Minister Julia Gillard said we are not your predominant market and you are not our predominant market. Another former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, said it would be unrealistic to view it as a substitute for the EU. And another former PM, Kevin Bloody Rudd, writing in The Guardian, said this about Brexit. Yeah, shall I put you down as an undecided? In fact, as far as I can tell, there appears to be only one Australian in favour of Brexit. Oh, in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the Black Lives Matter protests happening across the country and continue to happen. And a discussion came up about the Swing Low Sweet Chariot song sung at rugby matches, with Martin Johnson saying he doesn't think it should be banned, Brian Moore saying it should, and again Boris with his own unique take.
What I want to focus on is the substance of the issue.
Yes, Boris, all about the substance, Johnson.
Anyway, I certainly don't think there should be any sort of prohibition on singing that song. My curiosity is why don't people seem to know the rest of it?
Because it's a rugby match and not a fucking concert. And then on Thursday we have this from Dominic Raab and Mrs. Farage. Beware the white talkers.
Would you take a knee if you were asked to?
Do you know what? I understand this sense of frustration and restlessness which is driving the Black Lives Matters movement. I've got to say on this taking the knee thing, which I don't know, maybe it's got a broader history, but seems to be taken from the Game of Thrones.
What are you talking about? You know you're on air, right? What is this? Take a Dominic to work day.
So would you or wouldn't you do it?
Take the knee for two people, the Queen and the Missus when I asked her to marry me.
Yes, well, people do kneel for all sorts of different reasons. But I feel like I'm talking to a child. All right, so, well, here we go. So Dominic, his take a knee doesn't really come from Game of Thrones. I could dip into the whole difference between Black Lives Matter, which is an organisation that's attempting to address historical and modern-day racial inequality, and Game of Thrones, which is, and I can't put this strongly enough, a TV show. The take a knee was actually started by Colin Kaepernick, who was playing for a team called the San Francisco 49ers, which is a place in America, you know, that country with the large orange shouty man. I do hope you're writing all this down, Dominic. Anyway, he decided to take a knee during the national anthem as a form of protest against police brutality and racial inequality. This was then taken up by others around America, around the world, and over here in the UK as well. By the way, the only time when you have to kneel in front of the Queen is when you're about to be knighted. And Dominic, I wouldn't hold your breath. Prediction time! Already in the last couple of weeks I predicted waving goodbye to both Boris Johnson and Donald Trump by the end of the year. And it didn't look good for Trump when he held a rally in Tulsa on Saturday and large parts of the venue were empty. But it did give him an opportunity to catch up with his bigoted buddy and man seen here retracing his family tree, Nigel Farage. Well, this week's prediction looks at Nigel Farage and predicts that he won't be going back into being a politician, but will carry on in the same vein of being a professional pain in the arse. Probably on talk radio, something like that. Oh, and he will complain more and more about the country, all of which will simply be a smokescreen to him moving abroad when the Brexit chaos he helped create becomes a reality, or when Project Fear becomes Project Fact. And he'll do what most of his kind have done, take his ill-gotten fortune to South America. Well, thanks for watching. I will say this every week, but if you're enjoying these vids, please do hit the subscribe button and notifications bell. And I'll see you all next Monday. Take care.
I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.